Stormers 21, New Zealand 38. Well, I tell you what, it's not necessarily a scoreline that fully sums up the game, because I tell you what, hats off to the Stormers. They were tremendous. They really were. To put in that kind of performance against an All Black side brimming with talent, with plenty of experience, especially considering the inexperience of some of those Stormers players. Yaki Ahmed on debut. Some of the adversity the Stormers had to go through, losing Imad Khan 5 minutes in. Diawal Duvanacha, the veteran, playing his last Stormers game. He then went off in the 69th minute, and Siabela Sanatla had to actually finish on playing scrum off. So they threw almost everything they could possibly throw at the Stormers, did the All Blacks and the rugby gods, in terms of having to navigate some of the really, really sort of difficult parts of that. But this game was in the balance. It really was in the balance. You know, we saw the All Blacks score early, and that's always ominous when you have these tours and the touring side who are, you know, an international side or a combined side, invitational side with fantastic players. You know, that can sometimes be a bit ominous when you get an early try, because you think, oh, hang on, you know, the smaller side, your Stormers, your franchises, are they going to now worry, for example? Are they going to be a little bit devoid of confidence and start thinking, oh, hang on, this is a lot harder? The Stormers didn't do that. In fact, they replied with a try of their own, and Deon Fourie got onto the scoreboard. What a fantastic game he had. I mean, shout out to Deon Fourie, still going at his age, still turning up, getting fit, getting through injuries, and putting in that kind of performance. Absolutely sensational from him. 7-7. And then just before halftime, the All Blacks got their second try. So 14-7 at halftime. Stats were pretty even. The Stormers were dominating the scrum. Vernon Matonga was doing a job on Basilo Tossi. We had some very good moments, and the Stormers were in the game, you know. And even at halftime, I said, well, whatever the final score is, the fact of the matter is that they went toe-to-toe for 40 minutes, but it was longer than that. You know, we're talking about a game that only really sort of started to stretch out in the final 20, if we're going to be brutally honest. It really was. If you look at the momentum, it was very, very even. Up until the try that Rico Awani scored in the 66th minute, and after that we went Awani 66, Carter 71, and Morby 75. You know, those three late tries, and even one of them, especially talk about the injuries. The second last try for the All Blacks was when Chiva Diamani was back on the wing, had to go all the way back, picked up the ball, had no other option but to kick, got charged down, and they scored. So very unlucky. But 65 minutes, with 15 minutes to go, the score was 14-14. And as a South African, I'm looking at that game, and I'm looking at players like Yakin Ahmed. He looked so comfortable. To think that was his debut for the Stormers was incredible. The Stormers, 10 entries to New Zealand's 9. As usual, New Zealand, very, very good average points scored per entry. But none of the stats, for example, point towards a game where the All Blacks completely dominated them. In fact, there were lots of stats where the All Blacks will be a bit worried about. I think, you know, scrum-wise, didn't get the dominance. In fact, Stormers won quite a few scrum penalties. The All Blacks definitely kept ball in hand a little bit more, and we saw some quick taps, for example. We saw a couple of different things. So, you know, as people talk about an exhibition match, and I wouldn't go as far as to say it was, there definitely, I think, were things that the All Blacks might do differently were it a test match. But you can't give the two of those excuses. At the end of the day, I think we saw a bit of a disjointed All Black side. I also think we saw a bit of disjointedness in the Stormers side. But we saw a Stormers side that stood up and wanted to be counted. And if we look at some of the stats, you know, territory-wise, Stormers actually had more, 57% territory, and more possession throughout the rest of the game. The scrum percentage doesn't tell the full story, because I think the Stormers scrum was very good initially, and then as the bench started to empty, I think that's when All Blacks did find a bit of a second gear, really. But in general, the Stormers measured up. You know, post-contact meters 245, with the All Blacks 410. The All Blacks running threat continues to be a big part of it. You know, they've really much gone back to their DNA in that regard. They look to keep ball in hand as much as possible. They don't look to necessarily go to the box kick off. And I think a lot of people are asking why the Stormers, and I think you kind of have to. You know, if you're going to try and outrun the All Blacks, I think you're going to be in trouble. But there was definitely a bit of a warning sign, even to the box to a certain degree, that this All Black side has a lot of running. You've got lots of pace across that side, and players you can find gaps and opportunities. Rico Awani, very busy. Antoine Brown, after he only had a card, was tremendous in terms of getting that go-forward ball. ball retention for the All Blacks was pretty poor. 15 turnovers lost. And that'll be a big work on for them because that's not really good enough. As well as 16 penalties conceded and 3 yellow cards. So the ill discipline from the All Blacks is also going to be something that was quite worrying. Tackle completion rate, 86% for the All Blacks, 84% for the Stormers, two teams that were happy, especially at certain stages, to throw the ball around. And but not that many kicks. In an average test match, you'll see 20 to 30 kicks per team. We saw 31 kicks in total. The Stormers kicking the ball 16 times, the All Blacks kicking it 15 times. The kick to pass ratio for the All Blacks was 1 to 11.4. So that's a kick to every 11 passes. The Stormers was 1 to 7.4. So not that much, I think, but obviously did kick a bit more and stuff. In terms of some individual ball carriers, Anthony Brown topped the charts with 14. Peter Lakai, 2 line breaks. Big defensive shifts from Connor Evans. Peter Lakai, 17 from Peter Lakai, 16 from Connor Evans. Dion Free, 2 turnovers, 1 absolute aging like a fine wine. So job done as far as Dave Rennie is concerned. He really would have gone into this and said, at the end of the day, you've got to make sure we win. The performance is always kind of secondary to a certain degree, but it's a great game. It was a great game for the fans to watch. I think that's the main thing. It was a good product to really enjoy that. Was it always champagne rugby? No, but you're not necessarily always going to get that. So it's interesting that, for example, during the stream, people were sitting there saying, "Oh, there was just kicks, kicks, kicks." Well, actually, there was fewer kicks than what you see in a test match. We will see test matches where a single team will kick the ball 30 plus times. So 16 and 15 kicks is actually not a lot, especially in the second half. We saw it move away there as well. So yeah, it's learning curves, and this All Black side will only get better. But I think Rusty will have watched that game and been very, very chuffed, because the big thing for our local teams, you've got to try and soften the All Blacks up for the Springboks. You've got to make sure that by the time you get to the Test series, these All Blacks players are a bit sore, a bit tired, and a bit fatigued, and now they've got to try and get themselves up. That's what makes these tours so difficult. It's not necessarily just the opposition, it's the fact you've got to go and play 8 matches on tour. You've got to rotate the squad out. You've got to keep players fresh. You've got to cope with injuries, there will be injuries. There'll be no doubt be injuries throughout the tour. And you got to just keep having to get up and go. You got to get up and go again on Tuesday. You got to get up and go on Saturday. You got to get up and go, the following week on the Saturday, and then you go again on the Tuesday. So it's a very jam-packed schedule that the All Blacks have to try and cope with. But that's what makes these tours so much fun.